This video is the fourth of 6 in a series that is generally designed to assist users with the Oregon Government Ethics Commission's new electronic filing system through recorded navigation of the live website. As a whole, these videos focus on all of the different aspects of utilizing the new electronic filing system, but this video is the second and last specifically designed to guide Oregon lobbyists and their clients. While the first lobbying video demonstrates the account setup, registration, and termination processes in the new online system, this video covers how to electronically file your quarterly expenditure reports. More specifically, the objectives of this video should help you understand how to access the system and log in, assuming you've already set up an account, access and submit a quarterly expenditure report that is due, determine whether a report has been successfully received by OGEC, and also use a few of the other account features that might come in handy. But before I go ahead and show you how to file your expenditure report, I did want to remind you that you will only be permitted to complete and file your expenditure report once the filing window opens. Quarterly expenditure reports become due on April 1st, July 1st, October 1st, and January 1st for the immediately preceding quarter, and the window for filing lasts from the 1st through the 15th of each month. If you fail to file a report by the 15th day of the month it's due, you are automatically assessed a late fee of $10 per day for the first 14 days and $50 per day thereafter until either the report is filed or the amount of daily fees assessed against you for failure to do so reaches $5,000. There will no longer be a grace period given for failure to file beyond the 2-week window. If you were registered to lobby in Oregon before the advent of the electronic filing system, you may be aware that in the past, the Oregon Government Ethics Commission has accepted expenditure reports filed past the 2-week window without assessing the filer a daily penalty. However, this additional grace period was previously allowed due to the nature of paper filing. But now that the filing is all done automatically online, you'll be receiving immediate confirmation. Again, you'll have the 1st through the 15th to file, and that's it. Okay, so let's get started. Now, I've opened my web browser, and you should know that there are 2 ways to get to your report so that you can file it. One way is that you'll receive notice to file your expenditure report at the end of each quarter. You'll receive this notice via email from the Ethics Commission, and the email notice you receive should also contain a link that will take you directly to the login portal. The other way to get there and file your expenditure report is just by going to the Ethics Commission website. Go to www.oregon.gov/OGEC. Once you're on the website, look at the tabs on the far left side of the screen. Scroll to the bottom and click on Electronic Filing System. You're then directed to another page where you'll want to click on Electronic Filing System one more time. And now you should be in the Electronic Filing System web portal, and you should see 3 options. One is to view or search public records, to sign in as a registered user, or to register as a new user. Remember, in this video, I'm assuming that you've already registered an account in the online filing system, meaning that you already have created your login name and password. So what we're going to do is select the second option, sign in as a registered user. However, if you haven't yet created an account, that probably means that you haven't yet registered as a lobbyist in Oregon for the current 2-year period. So you'll need to do that first before you can file a report by selecting the third option, register as a new user. And if you need help with that, you're welcome to take a look at our other lobbying video. Okay, so we've clicked sign in as a registered user, and now you'll use your username and password to sign in. Notice that if you lose or forget your username or password, you can click on these tabs on the right. And once again, when it comes to expenditure report filing, regardless of whether you're doing it as a lobbyist or as a lobbyist client or employer, all of these navigational steps are virtually identical. The one little difference you'll see here is that if you're signing in using a lobbyist account, as I am now, you'll be taken to the role selection page, which you're seeing here, and then we'll choose the lobbyist role. But if I were signing in as a client or employer of a lobbyist, which I'll show you in just a few minutes, I wouldn't see the role selection page. I'd just be taken straight into my account home. I explain why this is so if you watched the first video, but I'll say it again right here. The system is designed so that any username associated with a lobbyist client or employer account is restricted to that role only. As long as your username is not set up for the client role, you can use it to fill any of these other roles that are relevant to you. Consequently, this also means that if you're one of the few who control both a lobbyist account and a client-employer account, you should have 2 separate usernames. So I just signed in using one of my lobbyist accounts, so I'll be selecting the lobbyist role. And then your account should automatically open to reports, which is what we're seeing here. And the client employer reports tab should look exactly the same. I'll mention that sometimes logging into your account might actually take you into a different tab for some reason other than reports. So for example, you might log in and be taken directly to registrations. If that happens, you just simply click on the reports tab in order to get yourself into the right place. And now click on file a new report. And then the reporting form should just pop right up. Remember that you only need to file one form per role per quarter. So for example, if you're a lobbyist with 5 clients, you need to file one form for yourself as a lobbyist, and each one of your 5 clients would need to file one report, no matter how many lobbyists they employ. Also, depending on when you registered in the electronic filing system or whether you have multiple outstanding expenditure reports due, say you forgot to file in the previous quarter, for example, the system might first prompt you to choose the quarter and year for which you intend to file. Just make sure that you're filing for the correct year and quarter. You can see here at the top that it gives you that information. So I know right off the bat that I'm filing a quarterly expenditure report for the 4th quarter, that's October through December of 2015. And if you've been doing these filings on paper until now, hopefully as I go through this, you'll start to notice that the information asked of you is going to be exactly the same. Now, before I begin the form, please note that this video is for the limited purpose of demonstrating how to navigate the Oregon Government Ethics Commission's new electronic filing system. Though I may happen to mention some substantive requirements of your quarterly expenditure report, I won't be discussing those requirements exhaustively. So if you feel like you could use some help figuring out what does or doesn't need to be included on your expenditure report form, you should sign up for one of our monthly webinars or just contact our office with your specific question. Okay, so now looking at the first question, the first thing it asks you for is the total that you, the lobbyist, expended on food, refreshments, and entertainment for the purpose of lobbying in the quarter, even if you were ultimately reimbursed. And even if the answer is nothing, make sure you have a 0 in the field. Sometimes it's hard to know the exact amount, especially if the filing deadline sneaks up on you, so check the estimated expense box if you're not exactly sure. Please know, though, that checking the estimated expense box means that you have an additional requirement to amend your report at a later time to reflect the exact amount when that information does become available. On the next part here, we're going to click Add an Expense if any portion of the amount you listed under Total Expended was ultimately paid for or reimbursed to you. You'll enter the source who paid and the amount. If no reimbursements apply, check the box to reflect none. These next 2 fields, total reimbursed and net expenditures, automatically calculate based on the information you've already entered. So total reimbursed should automatically reflect the total of all reimbursements, and net expenditures takes the amount listed in total expended minus the total reimbursed and gives you the total net expenditures for the quarter. On the last part here, itemized expenses, you're supposed to list each instance during the quarter where over $50 was spent on a lobby-related activity for the benefit of a legislative or executive official. Remember that expenses for relatives are considered for the benefit of the official. And also remember that the definitions for legislative and executive official are pretty broad, enough so to even include legislative staff, assistants, and even the staff or employees of executive agencies. As a matter of fact, anytime you're in doubt about what to include, you can try clicking on one of these question mark icons. These provide instructions and tips to help guide you through every part of the form. And if anyone else helped to contribute to one of these expenses exceeding $50, you should also list them by name here. If not, just check the box for none. This last part where you can upload documents is only required if you made expenditures that required you to provide receiving officials with written notice of accounting or receipt of expenditures. In other words, this should be a receipt of any of the expenses you already listed that either fell under the gift exception listed at ORS 244-0207BF or was an honoraria worth over $15. And again, without getting into too much detail about what to report, you can just click the question mark icon for help. And let me just demonstrate this process really quickly. You can choose from the files on your computer, select the document, and it's that easy. Once you're done, you can cancel, you can save and file later if for whatever reason you're not ready to submit the form. But if it's done and you're ready to submit, just go ahead and click Submit. And right here you get your first confirmation that you can either print or screenshot to keep for yourself. Just as a side note really quick, once a report has been submitted, you will not be able to delete it. The delete key over here is only available from the time a report is started until the point that it's submitted. But even after you've submitted a report, you can edit or amend. You could do this at any time. For example, you might want to use this to edit your total expended if you had to check the estimated expense box. And we already saw one confirmation immediately after submitting the report. There are 3 other places that you can look to see confirmation that the filing went through. 1, you should see immediate on-screen confirmation through an update of your Reports tab. The newly filed report shows up right on this bar, listing the year, quarter, confirmation number, date filed, etc. You should also receive confirmation in a letter automatically sent to you via email. So that's the second place you should be able to look. And that would be the email address that you have associated with the online account. And the third place, you should also receive a copy of that same email in your electronic filing system account home under the Communications tab. So now that I've just shown you how to find out whether your quarterly expenditure report has been successfully filed, you might also be interested in knowing how to find out whether one of your clients is filed. All you have to do is go into Registrations, where you see a list of all the clients on whose behalf you are or have been registered to lobby, and then just click on the hyperlinked name of the client that you're wondering about, and there you go. Just as a little side note here, the only time a name won't be hyperlinked is if the client hasn't yet established an online account or hasn't yet accepted you as its lobbyist. And speaking of client and employer expenditure report filing, let's go ahead and log out of this lobbyist account so that I can spend the last few minutes of this video showing you how similar that process is to the one we just completed. Again, clients and employers access their accounts in the same way as lobbyists by using the instructions provided at the beginning of this video, so please refer back if you need help getting to the website. As I said earlier, remember, if you lose or forget your username or password, you can use those links over here on this side. And because we're logging in as a client or employer of a lobbyist, as I explained this earlier, the sign-in takes us just directly into the account home. There's no rule selection page like with the lobbyist. Now, just as in the lobbyist account, you should be in Reports. Again, if for some reason your account doesn't want to be so predictable, let's say it uploads to the Registrations or Communications tab, all you have to do is just click on Reports to get yourself back in the right place. And like you already saw, you're going to click down here on File a New Report. Again, we want to make sure we're filing for the correct year and quarter, so double check that information here at the top. And the information required in this form is also exactly the same as what it has been on paper. What is a little bit different, though, is what's asked of the lobbyists versus what's asked of the clients and employers of lobbyists. So in this first question, it's asking you to list the total of all monies expended by the client or employer of the lobbyist for the purpose of lobbying. See, this question is more narrow for lobbyists. Remember, if you need assistance, try clicking on the information icon for help. And the next part asks for the name of each individual or organization to whom the client or employer paid money for lobbying in the quarter, or you can check the box for none. The lobbyist form doesn't ask for this. And the last part is exactly the same as what I just told you with regard to the lobbyist quarterly expenditure report forms. Itemized expenses asks you to list each instance where over $50 was expended on a lobby-related activity for the benefit of a legislative or executive official. Remember that expenses for relatives are for the benefit of the official and that these are broad definitions. Again, you click on the information icon if you want to see them in detail. And of course, if anyone else helped contribute to one of these expenses exceeding $50, you should list them by name here. If not, check none. And again, as we just saw with the lobbyist account, the document upload portion of this form is where you should upload documentation that the client or employer was required to provide any receiving legislative or executive official under ORS 244-100. Remember that these uploads should also be viewable under the Documents tab in your account. Once you're done, you can submit. Remember that once a report is submitted, you can't delete it, but you can edit or amend it at any time. We can also double check whether the submission was successful in exactly the same 3 ways I mentioned earlier with reference to lobbyist accounts. And lastly, just as lobbyists are able to check up on their clients to see whether they've timely filed their expenditure reports, clients can do the same with their lobbyists. So that's it. Thank you for joining me in this video, and hopefully you're now sufficiently knowledgeable on how to use the electronic filing system to file your quarterly expenditure reports. One thing I failed to mention earlier, but I do want to leave you with, is that you are required to file a quarterly expenditure report for every quarter in which you are registered to lobby in Oregon. And that's even if you have no expenditures to report for the quarter, and even if you did not participate in lobbying-related activities at all for that quarter. The only way either a lobbyist or a client or employer can be released from the quarterly reporting requirement is if all such relationships have been terminated prior to the start of that quarter. In closing, please remember that this instructional film is not intended to replace any specific guidance from Ethics Commission staff. If you experience difficulty or have specific questions about using the online system, please feel free to contact our office using the information provided on this screen. Otherwise, for assistance with routine use of the system, especially account setup, lobbying registration, or termination of a lobbyist-client relationship, please refer to the other video and training materials available on the Oregon Government Ethics Commission website.